Bob Signs, I don't know whether you remember him or not, that
Yep.
died from down here.
Yeah.
He was my lifelong buddy, and once I moved away from here, I'd come back quite a bit and stay at his house in deer season and stuff like that. He started out right after they got married. He and Julia lived here. It didn't look like that then. It was very
Right.
dilapidated. And then eventually right on the other side of this was a big house, I think, that belonged to Dr. Ned Rowe at one time, but he was long gone. And my buddy Bob Signs, well, I called him Deke, Deke moved in there. And then the where his house is now was at the time that we moved here, it was a movie theater. And it later, there's two movies. Gonder from Oakland had movies there on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We said he had cowboy movies on Saturday, but on Wednesday, different kinds of movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after the movie theater gave out whenever they started having a lot of drive-in theaters, and then of course TV came later. But Paul Fisher put a bowling alley in there, and it didn't do very good business, but eventually it burned down. And my dad, my mother, they were from right up here in West Virginia in the country, and they've been going now for quite a while. But when I moved back, I bought that up along the road there next to Hoy's. I bought an acre and a half there, and so I've lived there ever since '89.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little orchard up behind there. I make my own cider and heat with firewood, that sort of stuff. I know my dad always said that when he retired that he wanted to go up there and sit on there was a high cement stoop at the post office, and old people would go up there and sit and watch the traffic. When I was young, the kids in town would, like when I was real young, we would play marbles. Every boy in the school that was in like 5th, 6th grade would have a pocket full of marbles. And this thing, anytime you shot and knocked a marble out, and if you stayed in the ring, you could shoot again. Is that the way you played?
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a little thing going that people would play called sneaks. When your turn came, instead of shooting, you'd throw your marble already in the ring. Now, the thing that my brother and I we were con games because he was a good shot. I would sneak, then he would shoot. There'd be 5 or 6 of us playing. He would shoot and hit a marble and knock it out, and his marble would spin over close to mine. Then he'd knock mine out, and if you knocked someone out that was sneak, you got the whole pot. So we had scheduled marbles. We played marbles. We played hopscotch was a very common thing to play. You went swimming the 1st of June. That was common. Shoes were off all summer, yeah. And when you went to school, if you looked around in your classroom, you would see the other boys would have like a little bit of cow manure on their shoes, you know. And everybody usually only changed clothes once a week. Saturday night you'd have a bath and so, but everybody smelled the same, so nobody mattered. Nobody thought anything about it. And we had during the war there was rationing, and you couldn't get certain things. You had to have stamps and things like that for it. I know sugar was rationed, and I remember one time my dad coming in, and he was all excited because Raymond Snusnoggle was able to get him black market a 100-pound bag of sugar for $10. And that was a big deal. I mean, there was some of this going on, you know, people were getting things on the black market. And the fire whistle would go off, and all of us kids would have to get under our desk. Now, you know, the Germans were not going to come over and bomb Friendsville, but that's what you had to do because of the war being on. It was a different time because there's very few young people left around. I mean, anybody from, say, 17 to 25 was not there. My dad was just over the age. He was drafted just before his 25th birthday. He was drafted and got a 6-month extension on that because of his Blue Valley Creamery job. They said that was necessary. And like I say, we were up the railroad track all the time, going swimming, fishing, and just that sort of stuff.
Now, do you remember?
Some of us kids around Halloween, it started about a couple of weeks before Halloween, going around and soaping windows and throwing corn, knocking on someone's door and waiting until they came and then throw corn out and run, and things of that nature. And story got back to my dad, you know, and he says, well, those are calm things compared. They used to, he said, in my day, we'd go out and to a farm, and while they were going away from home, we'd get a wagon and put it up on top of their barn. And and another thing they would do is to fool with the outhouses, you know. Take the outhouse off of its foundation and move it around, and different things of that nature. Theirs were a little more in that line than what ours was. But like I say, we had 2 cows and a pig, 2 cows and 8 pigs at one time. We didn't butcher them all. We butchered right there behind the house where our garden was. We'd butcher the hogs, and then in one of the rooms that wasn't being heated by, eventually we got different kinds of heat as we went along, but the rooms that were not heated in that big house would be places that Dad could put the hams and things like that, and he took sugar cure and put all over them. But we butchered hogs there. My mother, one of the things that happened was that if we wanted to have a chicken for Sunday dinner, we had to kill the chicken, because otherwise, where would you get the chicken? So we'd go out to the chicken house. My mother would feel the chicken and see if they were a good layer. If they were not a good layer, that's the one. And my job was to chop the chicken's head off. And you've heard that a chicken with its head cut off, oh, that's true, because you chop the chicken's head off and the blood starts to fly and you let go, and the chicken would lots of times run around like a chicken with its head cut off, you know. And my mother would come out after I chopped the head off. She'd come out and she'd pick up the chicken, and she had a bucket of scalding water, and she'd go and she'd dip the chicken in the scalding water, take off the feathers, and that was our Sunday chicken dinner.
And so you used to drive the cows across the river here, and
across the bridge and down about a mile where there's a gate, turn them loose. They all had bells on. I'd go down and round them up every evening and bring them back up, put them in here, and at the end of the month he'd give me $5.
You do that every day for $5.
That's
wow.
That's what we did. 1953, the year I graduated from high school, I went to work in the steel mills out in Ohio. But in I worked every summer to make my way through college, and because my parents could never afford to send any of us kids to college, we all eventually went to school, but the 2 girls on scholarships, and I worked my way through. I worked in the steel mills that first year, and the next year work was scarce out there, and the young people that had come back, they formed softball teams, and so we played 100 and some games that summer with the backstop was right here, and this is where we played our ball. That school, of course, wasn't there. Markleysburg was our big rivalry, but yeah, we had great rivalries, and Ivan Umberson was a heavy-set whirligig pitcher, and he did all our pitching, and we won everything. We were good.
Yeah, no.
The baseball team, there was a guy who he was signed by the major leagues. Charlie Bill Welch was signed by the major leagues to play baseball, but he got drunk and missed out, and he would come down here to when we were playing. I played on a baseball team here before we played softball, and I was in physical education. That was my career, coaching and physical education. So I was in athletics from the time I was real young. But here we had a baseball team, and Charlie Bill would come down here, and he'd always have a beer in his hand, and they'd talk to him, come out there and pitch. And I can guarantee it, since I caught him at times, that he had a curveball that just fell off like that. But he didn't make it in professional baseball simply because he couldn't handle the liquor. Notice how they made that a straight run down through there. It wasn't like that when I was a kid. It was, you know, it had eddies and flows, but the thing is that it flooded quite often, so they came through and just ran the Corps of Engineers, and just look at, you can tell by looking at the sides of it, that is not the way Mother Nature does things. The cider mill was right there, and you know, after school we'd run down here. That was in the fall of the year, and we'd run down here, and everybody'd drink it and pretend like they were drunk and like that, you know.